And while the media crusade against Roy Moore is heating up, the judge's campaign has more support than ever. One America's Pearson spoke with a state representative from Alabama who says cowardly Republicans and the media have completely missed the message in Moore's campaign.
While the mainstream media rushes to the aid of anyone willing to condemn or accuse Senate candidate Roy Moore, they're staying silent on his supporters. It paints a picture that Roy Moore is alone with no allies to back him up, but a quick search reveals that simply isn't the case. Thousands are coming to Moore's support, with many claiming the scandal is just a political tactic to distract from his campaign. One such supporter is Republican Representative Ed Henry of Alabama, who sat down with One America News to discuss Moore and the special election. Henry says he's been a longtime advocate for Moore and doesn't believe there's anything to the allegations against the Senate candidate.
I think these are purely politically motivated. I think this was a witch hunt to attempt to suppress the vote. I doubt very seriously there is one iota of truth in either of the two primary allegations.
The representative claims that Moore isn't being given a fair chance and that both the media and his own party have been too eager to jump to conclusions.
You know, it's very typical of these types of allegations. People are very sensitive to the idea that it's difficult for women to come forward and acknowledge that they've been mistreated. And so the knee-jerk reaction for the populace, no matter if you're in Alabama or California or any place in the United States, is to want to believe.
Henry explained the allegations are suspicious not only for their timing, but because of the current national obsession with sexual harassment accusations. Because
the public spotlight across the country with the, from Bill Cosby to whatever some of the last guys that have been outed, I guess, for their sexual advances on women. There's a hysteria almost in the country, and I think they saw an opportunity to embellish and greatly exaggerate anything that was going on in Roy Moore's history in order to capitalize on what was already going on in the country.
That hysteria has apparently spread to Washington, D.C., where even entrenched members of the Republican Party are jumping ship and rushing to condemn Roy Moore. Henry didn't mince words to denounce these Republicans for what he called their cowardice.
The reason that your Paul Ryans and your Richard Shelbys and the like run away from these types of allegations is primarily because they're cowards. They care more about public perception than they do the truth. They care more about their public offices than they do doing what's right and what's hard. And I see it time and again in the state and out of the state that these elected officials, they're cowards. I don't know any other way to put it.
And according to Henry, that's why Republican establishment leaders like Mitch McConnell have turned against a conservative ally like Roy Moore.
The Mitch McConnells of the world, they really don't care if Democrats are in control, because Mitch McConnell has no intention of doing anything difficult. He would much rather spend the rest of his life as a U.S. Senator taking the benefits that come with that. You know, all of these guys, they go to D.C. Basically making a decent living. None of them are dirt poor, but when they leave as a U.S. Senator, they're multi-millionaires. And so Mitch McConnell would rather maintain the status quo in D.C., whether it's Democrats in charge or Republicans, and he knows that a Roy Moore is going to upset the apple cart and shine a very bright light on a dark and dreary place that is Washington, D.C., and they do not want it.
Henry warns the stakes are much higher than simply an election in Alabama, and there will be consequences for conservatives across the country if Moore loses. He claims that if the Democrats are able to successfully assassinate Roy Moore's character and win a contested seat in Alabama, then an all-out assault on Republicans would follow in the 2018 midterm elections. But Henry and many other residents we spoke to in Alabama don't think that's going to happen. Despite a common message in the mainstream media, Henry says the scandal has actually invigorated more residents to come out in support of Roy Moore.
To listen to the news outlets, the race has tightened its neck and neck. I haven't found anyone who is not going to vote for Roy Moore because of all of this. I have found quite a few people who were not going to take the time to vote just because they thought it was a done deal, who have approached me now and say, look, I'll be voting on December the 12th because I understand how important this is, and I understand how much the liberal media and the Democrats will lie to win a race.
The representative says politicians in Washington and Alabama, as well as news outlets that rushed to convict Moore, have all underestimated the judge. Polls show Moore is up by at least 5 points over his Democratic rival Doug Jones, and Henry says that's because Alabamians are focusing more on the Senate candidate's message rather than the hyped-up allegations. And for the residents of Alabama, Henry says that's what the race will ultimately come down to: not being distracted by the media frenzy and standing behind the message that Roy Moore represents.
I care about really the agenda that Donald Trump ran his campaign on, bringing jobs back to America. Let's do that. Let's secure our borders. Let's defend the Constitution, and let's protect life. And those are the things that I know full well that Roy Moore stands for. Here's a man who went to Vietnam. He took an oath to defend our Constitution from all enemies. He has time and time again, he has sacrificed himself and his position for what he believes in. And I think we need that in this country. We need that in the U.S. Senate.
Pearson Sharp, One America News.